Hello and welcome to Workout Wednesday for Power BI 2023 Week 2. This week we are looking at how to create layered area charts with some annotations of final values as well as some events for context built right into the charts. And also we're changing colors above and below 0%. So we will get started. We have two data sources today. One is a CSV that we download from NASDAQ. The next one is data.world for the events. And the final one is a date table. You may have one of these handy, or you can create one using Power Query or DAX. Now that I have my data, clean it up a little bit. And that gets me my data. So first, I need to create some relationships. Fix the direction and cardinality. Then I need to add some calculations, some DAX measures. I'm going to add a count rows for the events table, which will get used later. And I need a measure for the earliest event date. That's going to come in the bottom two charts. And then I took this data as static, so I didn't try to be fancy and do everything dynamically. So I created a handful of measures to help me do this. The first charts we compare to the end of 2021, the end of 2020, and then the end of 2019. So I've got the same thing, same logic basically everywhere, but I'm changing the date on this. So I get the very first closing price, which is from 12/31/2019. I get the date that is shown in the chart. And as long as that is not blank, because in our data we don't have, a price for weekends or holidays when the market is closed, then we do our division to get the percent difference. So again, same measure, but this time different date. And then another one for just that year, 2022. And then in the bottom charts, we do just the second half of 2022. So again, just the date changes. Those are kind of our base measures. And then To be able to do the charts that change color when they're above or below 0%, I'm actually just using different series within the area chart. So I'm going to use those measures that I just created and basically have a version of the above 0 for each of those. And again, this is just if that percent difference is greater than 0, use the number. If not, we make it 0. Okay, so I've got my above 0. And then I also need to make a marker for the last point in my area chart. So that's another series. Some of my charts end on December 30th, 2022. Most of them do. So if we look, I'm just getting the last date in the data set that gets passed, or in the row that gets passed to the visual, and saying, okay, if the date that we're currently on, the point in the chart, is the same as this last date of December, then create a data point for whatever the value is, that percent difference that we just calculated. Otherwise, it's blank. And we have to do this, again, you could probably be fancy and narrow this down to one measure. If it's static and you're only doing this once, you decide if it's worth it. So we may have different comparison points, meaning we use the different measures we created earlier. So this one is comparing it back to the 2021 number. And then we have one chart that is just the second half of 2022. So we do the same thing here. Change the date. Everything else is the same except the measure. And of course, we have a chart that is the first half of 2022. So change the date again, but we can reuse that 2022 measure. We still need to add a couple more measures for events. So if there is an event, we're basically making a point on a marker on the area chart using the percent difference value. And again, I'm doing the same thing. The first one was the first half of 2022. This is the second half of 2022. And all I'm doing is changing out that measure based on the time period. All right, now we can get into building our charts. So we can go ahead and add our text boxes for the title and information. Oops. I made my chart titles as separate text boxes so that I could do the color. So I'm going to go ahead and place the first one. And then we'll add an area chart. I'll populate date. This one is for the full year. Make this a little wider so we can see it. This one's going to be December 30th. This one's going to be above 0, 2022. So the colors are all wrong, but this is the beginning of our chart. And we can just say on or after and on or before. And now it's at least got the right shape. And turn off the title on the x-axis. Same thing on the y-axis. There is no secondary. I'm going to turn off my legend. Grid lines are going off to sort of match the styling of the WAPO article. Then when we get to lines, we make our lines a little thinner here, and we turn on stepped. In this case, because there's actually, tons of different pricing throughout the day, but we're just using the closing price per day, I don't usually do the stepped thing, but I'm okay with it here. Then we got to change our colors. Here we go. And that's at least the right line colors on our first chart. We can see our little positive part up there. Now we need to change our markers. So we won't have markers on everything, but we will have a marker on that last data point. And I'm going to make my marker just a little smaller. It can stay red. And the way I got the -19 on there, you could absolutely turn on data labels. I'll show you why I don't like that as much from what I did, and then I'll show you what I did. And turn them off for the other two, and I could leave it on there, but we don't have a ton of control over the placement. It doesn't always work out that it's perfectly great sitting right below the chart. So I prefer to turn data labels off since I have static data. This doesn't work when you have dynamic data. And then I'm going to make these labels shorter so that they don't take up as much room. This one's going to be -19%. And this one will be greater than 0. So that's how I got the data label, the fake data label to the side. And then I made the color darker and bold. And one thing I need to do that I did not do earlier was make sure that my Measures are formatted as a percentage. And you can actually do this pretty quickly this way as well, or in Tabular Editor. Oops. You can go percentage, decimal places are 0. Okay, we should be good now. Okay, that will fix my chart labels. We're going to go back and make the values just a little smaller. Okay, then I'm going to turn, well, we'll see. I'm going to turn off my title, but because screen readers can read titles, I tend to paste in the title that I would want and then turn it off because it keeps that text in there. That way I can distinguish my chart from my title text box. And then I had a tooltip report, so I'm going to go ahead and create that. We'll call this page summary. I called this one event tooltip. It is going to be a tooltip. But I'm going to make it a custom size because I wanted it to be just a bit smaller. So we're going to go 225 and 290. And our background is going to be just slightly different from the main page. And then I added a text box that takes up pretty much the whole tooltip report. So for my tooltip report, I made a table that has a column called Show Events in Tooltip because my top charts don't have events and my bottom charts do, but not on every row. So this is going to help me later to reuse this tooltip report in all the charts. And then I'm going to make a few more measures to help me. The first one is my event category label. So if there's an event and show events and tooltips for that visual is true, we're going to show this label. going to do one more for the actual event description. I'm going to add another measure for the closing price, another one for the date, I'll add one for the actual event description that we're going to put in there. So the previous one was for the label. This is the actual event. So I happen to know from this data that there is no more than one event per day. So I'm just grabbing the min, and then if I've got show events in tooltip equals true, then I'll show that event description. If not, I will show blank. And of course, if there's no data for that date, it already shows blank. And then I'm going to do something similar for the selected event category. So we take that, oh, helps if you spell it right. We take that other measure, we change description to category, and then we are all set there. So now I can start populating this with data. And the first one will be selected date. And we'll format that. The next one will be our close price. And that one can be a decimal. And then not everything has an event, which is why we made those DAX expressions earlier. So here I'm going to say event cat label. Make sure that took. And then we need our selected event category. And then we'll do the same thing for event label. And then selected event. Okay. So now if I go to general and set my tooltip to the event tooltip, it should show up with just date and closing price. If you find a date that also has an event and you don't want it to show up in the top chart, that is why I made the show events in tooltip. So it's going to be false. So now I can guarantee that it is always just date and closing price. These titles are literally just text. I didn't dynamically populate them with data. They start out as dark gray, and then I just selected this piece and changed the color. So here's our second chart, and it's basically just a different time frame and swap out measures. So we're going to go to date, and it's going to be on or after 12/31/2020 and on or before 12/30. We're going to keep show events in tooltip. We're going to swap out our measures. So we're going to do events close 2021 instead of D1. We're going to do the above zero from 2020 the December 30th compared to 2021, and then we just fix our formatting. So we've already got our titles and stuff off. We mostly just need to fix the lines. The stroke width is fine, but we need to change our colors. And we really need to change the names of them. And that one I don't need anymore. Because again, I'm going to use that series label to do my data label. All right. Colors. C1 is going to be green this time. Oh, wrong way. There we go. So we just, again, want that last data point. Oh, I need to change which series label is turned on here. So I want diff turned off, 2% turned on, C1 turned off. And we're just achieving the color because they happen to overlap, and I'm okay with the gray underneath the green. And of course we need to change our title. And turn it off. And make sure our tooltip is on. Yep, doing great. And then our last one in this row is again the same, but we got to change our dates again. So in this one, we use the diff close for 2019 because it starts at the end of 2019. The December 30th, 2022 measure, which is that final dot that I labeled 19%. And then the above zero from 2019. That's what gives us the green on top. And I need to go set my tooltip. And again, this is just the color of the font made a change. I didn't do anything dynamic. The next thing is a slicer from event category. And I used the title instead of the slicer header here. I added an additional text box to help describe what's going on in the charts on the bottom row. And then I'm doing a very similar chart to before, but it's going to have some extra information. Make this a little wider there, and then we'll fix the other one in a second. We'll go ahead and copy the title over. Okay, so first we fix our filters. This one's going to be on or after 12/31/2021 to on or before 6/30/2022. And we do want our tooltip to show events. And the way I'm showing events is with another series in there. So I'm going to do event amount H1. This measure stays the same because we're still in 2022, but I need to swap out the December 30th one with the June 30th one. And it's going to look a little crazy till we fix it. And then we can keep the above 0 2022. All right. No adjustments on our axes. Our legend is turned off. We do need to rename and then we'll format. Our lines, this one's going to stay the same red color. EBT we're going to make straight up white. Actually, before we do markers, we're going to go to EBT and we're going to set our stroke width to 1. So now we don't have the white lines, we just have white dots, which we'll fix in markers. Markers, let's go to EBT. And I made that one kind of dark gray. And then our series labels. We're going to turn all of them but the 21% off. And then we need to add our vertical line. So our vertical line shows the first date that has an event. And we made a measure for this. It's in events. I made it a yellow color and I put it behind because it's just extra contextual information. It doesn't need to go in front of anything. So now when I hover over, let's say, a point that has an event, I will see the event because now I've set that flag to true. But when there's no event, I won't even see the data labels. It'll just show me the top two things, similar to what we see above. So here's one with an event, here's one without an event, all the way through to the end. And the last chart is very similar, but has a different time frame. So first we fix our filters. This one will be June 30th, 2022 to 12/31, 2022. Then we need to swap out our measures. So we'll close our filters. Instead of event amount H1, we want event amount H2. Instead of %diff close 2022, we want 2022 H2. Instead of June, we want December 30, 2022 H2. And then we need to swap out our above 0 for the correct one there and make the name nice and short. Our vertical line stays the same, so that's all good. Then we can format our lines. The EVT line goes away, stroke width of 0. The % difference is going to be red. That last data point is actually green. And the greater than 0 will be green. The line for event will be white. The event markers will be on, and we'll change that color. % difference markers can go away. The greater than 0 markers can go away. And then we just have the 1% at the end. So only gray event markers or tooltip. Yep, works as intended. Change our series labels here. That one can be off. That one can stay on. That one can turn off. So now we just have 1% there. So that is how we got all that context into the default area chart by just adding multiple series and formatting them each differently, and then adding a vertical line here. So I went back through and changed a lot of my interactions so that if I clicked on a data point here, it didn't filter all the charts above it. So I said, everybody ignore this chart. And then I made sure that the events slicer was ignored by all the charts in the top row as well. So now when I click on earnings, I'm limited only to earnings events. And I can cycle through monthly inflation reports. And we see that our vertical line moves and our dots appear in the right places. And just for good measure, hide my tooltip report so when it gets published, it wouldn't show up in the page list. I hope you enjoyed this new Workout Wednesday for Power BI. Thanks for watching.